don't find an opinion or you don't find guidance on the website, you can also go to the State Ethics Commission and request, you can do two things. One is you can speak to the attorney of the day. They put somebody on phone duty every single day, and that person will get back to you that day. Or you can ask for a written opinion. So there's always going to be an answer somewhere. Even though the rules themselves are very complicated, there's always a way to figure out the answer.
I just want to say I've used that and it's been phenomenal.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's very important.
When you had us all call, remember?
Everybody,
Yeah,
everybody here did call, and then I also followed up with additional calls, and I got things in writing, and
Yeah.
they're really very helpful.
They're gracious.
Yeah.
I think one problem that some of our clients have is sometimes they don't feel comfortable identifying themselves or their employer, and the State Ethics Commission will not answer questions in the abstract. And you know, I can understand if what you're doing is thinking about structuring a transaction. You don't necessarily want to put it out there, you know, yet. And that's when people sometimes call lawyers to help them figure out the answer without going to the State Ethics Commission. But they really are terrific, and I love working with them. Okay, so first item, bribery and gifts. And I put it in writing, but we can just talk about it. You know, feel free to follow along or not. It's on the bottom of the first page. I'm sure everybody here understands a priori. You are not allowed to accept bribes. You know, that's very basic. You probably don't need a statute to tell you that. Gifts become a little bit more complicated, though. You are not allowed to accept anything of substantial value in connection with your service as trustee. The question is, what does substantial value mean? So the State Ethics Commission is taking a position that means anything of a value of $50 or more. So substantial in today's times, I don't know if you would have considered $50 substantial, but it is. Then it gets more nuanced. You have to aggregate values of different things that might be connected in some way to get to the $50. So, for example, somebody invites you to a dinner and a game, and each one is less than $50, but it's one evening. Total is more than $50, and that's a violation of the state ethics statute. Also, you have to think about what does it mean to give you something. There's a lot of discussion of games. That is one way that business people are used to entertaining each other. Let's say you're at a game, and somebody you do business with, or your school does business with, has, you know, a really nice box seat, and they invite you to come by. Well, if you come by for a 15-minute talk, they haven't given you anything. That's probably okay. If you come by and sit out the whole game in the box, heated box, whatever it is, then you've probably received something that's in excess of $50 in value, and that's a violation of the state ethics statute. Another aggregation issue. Each lunch that you receive might have a value of less than $50. That's pretty reasonable for a lunch, but if you have a standing invitation for lunch, that gets aggregated. Now you've gone over the $50 limit.
Is that in a year period? So if you had 3 lunches in a year, would you be
Well,
getting
it
close?
depends if they look like they should be aggregated or not. You know, if it's an invitation, you know, once a month this quarter, that's probably something you'd aggregate. If it's random, you know,
or January,
let's do
December.
lunch, you know, let's talk about this, and then, you know, a couple months later it happens you have something else to talk about. That's probably not something you would aggregate. Another example, somebody gives you money for travel purposes. Well, then you have to think a little bit. What is the purpose of the travel? Is it to really facilitate, is it almost like a gift to the school to facilitate schoolwork, or is it a gift to you? That's one of those very nuanced areas where you probably have to seek some counsel. It's not always clear. Travel can get very tricky. Yeah.
Can you ever approach that aggregate by, for example, you and I sit down and I'm trying to sell you something. I buy you the $25 lunch. Next time you say, no, I'm buying lunch.
Yeah.
And then does that mean bring me back to zero so we can go up
No,
the next time?
no, you don't plus and minus.
No, you said aggregate. So.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
you're right. You don't get to add and subtract.
Just
no.
add.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I don't think so.
Because then you're shifting back the obligation. I don't owe you anything. And
Right.
that's-
So, no, I mean, the best thing to do in that situation, if that's what you plan to do, is frankly to go halves each time. And then no one's given a gift. Right? That's the best way to do it. Okay. Now, this only applies to gifts given in connection with your service as trustee. You may, in fact, be friendly with somebody who does business with the school, and they give you a gift for your birthday, and that's fine. You know, don't worry about things like that. But always worry a little bit about appearances. If the gift is larger than the person would have given to you as a friend, and there's some implication that it's really over and above your friendship, but really for your service as trustee, it might not be an issue under this statute, the gift statute. Maybe there's an appearance of impropriety statute. So these get very nuanced sometimes.
And if you have a 501c3 status, are you better to have gifts which go directly to supporting the education of the program? For example, trustees or other friends in school may be giving funds to support teachers going to a conference for professional development. Rather than having something go directly to an individual, are you safer to have the funding come in to the school and then be awarded by the school?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And also from the perspective of the donor, if there's differences of opinion, most people will say that a donation made to a charter school for purposes of education is going to be deductible, but there are some foundations, for example, that will only give money to a 501c3. But assuming that you're willing to give money to the school and take the deduction, that's how you'll get the deduction. If you gave it to individuals, you wouldn't get a deduction anyway. So sure, in that case, it's better for donors to grant money to the school. And then the school would be the part determining who went to the conference. But hopefully the donor was in sync with what the school wanted. I mean, that's the idea anyway. Donors should be discussing that with the school to find out, what's the purpose of the conference, who's going to benefit from the conference, and hopefully that will work out. Yes. Okay. I guess obviously the statute says you can't solicit gifts. That again, it feels to me like bribery is one of those things that's probably obvious. Another area of the statute that gets very complicated is the acting for others portion of the statute. So, as trustees, and this is on page 2, and what this does on page 2 is it's an outline of the statute. There's the portion of the statute that deals with current trustees, the portion of the statute that deals with business partners of current trustees, and a portion of the statute that deals with former trustees. There's a little portion of that last piece, the former trustees, where business partners of the former trustee come into play. It's only a small piece, so I haven't segregated it. As a current trustee, you are only allowed to have one master, and it gets more complicated when you are in fact working. So we'll talk about that later. But the idea is that you serve the state. You serve the state through your service as trustee of the charter school. In any matter that you work on as a trustee of the charter school, you're not allowed to let outside influences influence how you act or behave. Gifts are obviously a direct way in which somebody might ask you to work or encourage you to behave a particular way. But you can indirectly be influenced if you have a position, let's say, with a seller of textbooks. And your charter school obviously buys textbooks and might even be interested in buying from your textbook company. Or the textbook company might be preparing curricula that your school is interested in adopting. And curricula, perhaps textbooks isn't a good example because textbooks aren't really part of the purview of the Board of Trustees, but as a very technical matter, one of the oversight responsibilities of the Board of Trustees is curriculum. I don't know if you've dealt with that yet. There are some questions about how far into curriculum you get, you have professional staff, but it is part of the statute that is one of your responsibilities is oversight of curriculum. So you want to purchase curriculum from some kind of company that's producing curriculum. So as a trustee, if you've participated in a matter like oversight of curriculum, you can't receive any compensation from the company that prepares the curriculum. Different ways to deal with this, because if you work for that company and the school's interested in buying curriculum from that company, they should be permitted to do so. Another issue is, let's see, if it was something within your official responsibility as trustee. So, management companies. I don't think you have a management company.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just kind of occurred to me, not that
Yeah.
this has come up at all, but
Yeah.
so I've written curriculum for middle
Yeah.
school, and if the charter school decided to buy my curriculum, which is, I don't sell it, it's sold to another organization, but I get royalties,
Yeah.
how would, not that it's come up, but I'm just sort of, I'm curious.
Yeah, no, so that is difficult. So you should not be participating in that case, in the decision.
Suppose I wasn't in the decision,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
I'm
you're not involved at all.
Not involved at all.
Yeah, yeah, so that actually is the next section we'll get to,
That's
which is,
That's
I'm always
deep.
in-
yeah, it is.
Is your name
No.
on that curriculum, just for the record?
Yeah,
So
I
it's say
have a
Amy
primary
Balin's
Yeah.
English course or
Yeah.
whatever.
so there are ways.
So we know it was,
Yes.
yeah.
There are ways
you
to
would
do
know.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this is exactly why the state ethics statute gets complicated. Because when you have a question, you can't just look at any single section. You end up having to look at several of them. So you haven't participated, so you haven't violated this section, which is good. And then there's a question, is it within your official responsibility? That's difficult. I mean, especially, like I said, in the matter of curriculum, because the charter school statute definitely says that that's part of your responsibility as trustee, is oversight of curriculum. And yet, if you talk to people in the charter school office, like, what does that mean? They do recognize that that is a non-standard responsibility for a board. You know, a board of a nonprofit school does not get involved in curriculum. That's why they hire professional staff. And I think you will get different answers from different people as to what it means or doesn't mean. And so I probably don't have a great answer on whether that's considered within your official responsibility, but assume that it's not, and assume that you haven't participated. So then we're going to get into the question of financial interest. But if something is in fact something you
You
participate
only
in,
make $1 per book. Maybe it's two.
Okay.
But aggregated.
No, and actually there's
At least
no,
$50.
you know, interestingly, the financial interest section has no dollar amount on it. It's only that gift section that does.
It's funny though, it was one of the questions that came up in the training today. And I actually asked a follow-up to it specifically around state universities and professors. So if you were lecturing a class of 4,400 in a lecture, that large lecture hall, and you assign, you've got 3 sections, and you assign your book as one of the required readings. And apparently they let, state universities are also outside of the, and they can do pretty much what they want.
Wow.
And I was very surprised by that. But
Not at my university.
is that right?
Yeah, I had to take a test on that recently myself. And you can't assign your own book.
Wow.
That's
It's getting better.
I don't know the answer to the question. There are certain exceptions to the ethics statute for actually being employed in the capacity of a teacher. You know, so there's these issues of serving the state in 2 ways. So service as a teacher is generally okay. That's a special exception. But I think that's to encourage politicians, frankly, to teach about what they do in schools. That's my guess.
Also, it'd be a very odd thing if you were taking a class from Carol Gilman.
That's right. Then you couldn't read their book.
All right, so the problem with the acting, I mean, not the problem, but the acting for other statute provisions of the state of the statute does not have any way around it. In other words, there's no disclosure you can make, there's no permission you can get from anybody. You are not allowed to be compensated for acting, for representing somebody with whom